This video is about Centiskorch Vmax. Welcome back everyone to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch and today I'm going to be taking a look at Centiskorch Vmax over in Tabletop Simulator. This card is pretty good. It's pretty good, I like it. And there's nothing quite like playing Welder again, so we will definitely have some fun with this one. We're going to be playing a game with it pretty soon, whenever that is, probably a couple of days from now. So if you're interested in seeing that when it eventually comes up, then consider subscribing whilst you're down there. Give the video a like as well. That would be really appreciated. But hey, without much further ado, we'll jump straight into the list. Here we are on Tabletop Simulator. If you're interested in seeing our Tabletop Simulator setup, then you're more than welcome to download it and subscribe to it on the Steam Workshop. There's a link in the description that you can do that very, very easily. It'll have all the decks that we are featuring at the moment, and this one, Centiskorch, is pretty strong. Centiskorch Vmax is a very powerful attacker with Gmax Centinferno. Cmax, not Gmax. Gmax Centinferno. This attack is super good. For 2 energy, it does 40 plus an extra 40 for each fire energy attached to this Pokemon. And then, once you've done that, you can attach another fire energy from your discard pile onto Centiskorch as well. So you are doing expandable damage very quickly, and if your opponent can't stop you, they can't knock you out. You've got 320 HP, they're not going to do it very easily. If they can't stop you, then you're going to be able to put extra energy on your attacker, which means you're going to be doing more damage. It's probably one of the only Pokemon in the format that's going to reliably able to be taking one-shot knockouts, which is obviously really strong. One of the good things is that Centiskorch V is actually pretty solid as well. For 1 energy, you will do 20 damage. That's not super great, but you can also discard 1 energy from this Centiskorch to discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon as well. So, are you going up against ADP and they've attached an energy already? You can just get rid of it. That's not a problem. Things like what's it called? Eternatus. The card seems pretty good. They're manually attaching energies. You can just get rid of one of their energies every turn. That seems like a pretty good idea as well. Burning Train, potentially useful, but I think I'd rather have 4 fire energies on a Centiskorch Vmax personally, just because I know that I'm going to be able to get that extra energy attachment as well. Our list here has 4 of the Vs and 3 Vmaxes, because we've got some other attackers as well. We're obviously playing a very solid Welder build, so we get to use some extra attackers here. Volcanion is a very strong attacker, obviously has Flare Starter as well, so if you're going second, which I would recommend, then you'll be able to attach some fire energies from the deck to your Centiskorch for the cost of your attack. That's pretty solid. And then you've also got the option to high Heat Blast as well. 110 damage off of a single prize attacker is pretty solid, especially against Decidueye. So consider a couple of these. You could potentially play a few more, but I've opted to go for a Heatran GX as well. Burning Road actually syncs up really nicely with Centiskorch. You can attack with your Centiskorch, attach extra energy. Your opponent might half hit you, get you pretty close to being knocked out. You'll switch into your Heatran, move your energy off, and then you can Steaming Stomp or Hot Burn GX for game. Hot Burn GX is also a really solid GX attack. It's the only one that we have in the list, apart from obviously Dedede's Tingly Return, but you're probably not going to be using that one anytime soon. These are our attackers. We're going to try and use these to maximum effect. If Centiskorch can take a couple of prizes for you, you'll be very happy, and then Heatran can come in to finish the game off. We obviously have to set that up somehow though, and Welder can be a little bit awkward, so we want to start with Jirachi. We have 4 of these. We want to get that into the active as quickly as possible. We also have 2 Dedenne and an Eldegoss. Eldegoss really strong to find Welders back from the discard pile, and we also have 1 Whirlpool Suction Phione, which I think is a really good inclusion. It can stop your opponent from moving things into the active that are going to slow you down, because the thing with Centiskorch is you want to be taking multiple prizes as quickly as possible, and Phione can potentially help you do that. When we're looking at the supporters, Welder is obviously our primary supporter. We want to use this as often as possible so that we can attach 2 fire energy and draw some extra cards. But since Centiskorch has so much HP, we don't necessarily have to play it every turn. We can instead opt for Professor's Research, which is obviously a very strong draw card, or we can use 1 of 2 copies of Boss's Orders to guarantee that we get the knockout that we want. So the thing that old Reshizard decks needed, the welder every single turn to keep the pressure up. This deck simply doesn't require, especially if you go second and attack with Flare Starter. You might play one welder for the entire early game and then just use maybe one or two later to potentially set up a couple of other knockouts. So I really like this. I probably feel most comfortable playing welder with this particular version of welder deck. So there's just so many options that you can use, and obviously Centiskorch has such high HP, it's not going to be too much of an issue to keep that alive. Moving on to the items, we have some very common ones. You've probably seen these before, things like Quick Ball and Pokemon Communication to help us search out Pokemon. Quick Ball obviously searches for everything in our deck apart from Centiskorch, but the Pokecom will do the job for us there. We also have 4 copies of Switch so that we can move our Pokemon in and out of the active position, and only 2 copies of Scoop Up Net. I've only got 2 here because the only Pokemon that we really want to pick up is going to be Jirachi. We don't have Zigzagoons and things like that. I'm not sure. We probably could play an extra couple of copies of this. I don't know where we'd fit them in, but there's a better list than this. This is just our starting list. So I'm sure that we can find another place or two to put some more scoop ups in, because it can be useful to pick up Volcanions and stuff. But for the most part, your Pokemon are going to be relying on Switch to get in and out of the active. We also have 2 copies of Reset Stamp in the list. Like many welder decks, we really struggle when our main attackers get knocked out. So if we can stall our opponent and find a couple of turns so that we can welder once or even twice, we should be able to hold out for the game. 2 copies in this deck because obviously Dedenne can get rid of 1, and that's very awkward, but it's not necessarily required. There are going to be games where you won't play Reset Stamp at all. And we also have 1 copy of Great Catcher as a kind of an extra gust on top of our Fione and our boss. Everyone's still playing Dedenne. Dedenne is still really good. We can knock out Dedenne really easily. It actually only takes, I think, 3 energy on a Centiskorch to get to 160. Let's see, maybe 4. Maths is hard. I'm not going to bother doing maths on the fly again. It's always just embarrassing. But Great Catcher very easily can get you a knockout on a Dedenne. Couple of prizes for free. Can't complain. Our stadiums in this list, we have 2 copies of Giant Hearth to help us search out our many copies of Fire Energy. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we want to find those as quickly as possible. Hearth will do the job there. But we also have a copy of Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star. Obviously, Heat Factory is now gone, but Wondrous Labyrinth is actually really strong in this deck because Centiskorch Vmax is often going to have more than 2 energy attached to it. So we really feel no effects from Wonder Lab, whilst other decks really struggle with it. So if they can't find another stadium, they can't replace it, then we might be able to get 1 or 2 attacks off with our Centiskorch, whilst our opponent sits there trying to attach extra energy to their active that they just don't need. So that can be very strong. Obviously, Fire Energy is the core of the deck, so Giant Hearth, good to find those. We also have, in the top right corner, 4 copies of the new Heat Fire Energy, and this card kind of makes Centiskorch that tiny little bit better than it could already be. Obviously, we're not going to be able to search these out with Giant Hearth, we're not going to be able to attach them with Welder, but we can really, if we get 1 or 2 of these and attach it to a Centiskorch, we can turn 2 hits on Centiskorch Vmax into 3 hits because, 360 HP is a lot higher than 320 HP. As weird as it sounds, like 120, not 120, 320 is really not that hard to hit. It's like 160 twice, right? But it's really hard to hit 170 or 180 twice, and a couple of Heat Fire Energies can do the job for you there. Now, we've got 4 of them. If you get all of those attached to a Vmax, you give yourself a hell of a lot of HP. Something like 400 HP is going to be pretty tough to deal with, but even just attaching 1 to a Heatran to give it 210, or 1 to a Volcanion to put it out of that 130 range, can be very powerful. So don't sleep on Heat Fire Energy. It's obviously not like a broken special energy, but it is pretty good. Definitely worth respecting. So that is the Centiskorch Vmax list that we are testing out on the channel at the moment. A reminder, like all of our lists, this is not a perfect 60 cards. There are areas of improvement, but if you want to see it being played, then we will have a game up on the channel pretty soon. So keep your eyes peeled, subscribe if you want to check that one out as it comes live. So there it is, the Centiskorch Vmax list that we're testing out with on Tabletop Simulator. Again, like I mentioned, not perfect, but definitely a good place to start. And if you've got other ideas or suggestions, then by all means, list them out in the comments below. Always love having a chat with people who are interested in Pokemon TCG. We've only got a few more days until this set comes live, so we'll be back on PTCGO very, very soon. But we've got plenty of other decks to profile first, so if you want to see those as they come up, please consider subscribing. Whilst you do that, if you want to like the video as well, that'd be great. There's a button to subscribe that's over here, actually, now that I mention it, and there are some videos over here and a playlist down here. So I don't know, click whichever one you want. It's up to you. It's your life. Don't let me tell you what to do. I don't know. This is it. This is the end. This is the end of the video. We're done.